Welcome, everybody. We're ready for a new week, new episode. We got my good friend Eleasha here. Welcome to the show, Eleasha.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this one. You're officially the first female on the show.
Yes.
Yeah, so you get the Queen Bee title of first female on the show.
Yeah, yes.
What's up, Biz? How are you doing this week, man?
I am as good can be.
Good as good can be?
Yes.
All right, well, let's rock this thing. So for those of you that don't know, Eleasha Deering here. She is Chief Media Officer of STATT Financial Group. If you guys saw the earlier episode with Tony Hills, you know what STATT Financial is about. And she is also a big-time influencer. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Eleasha.
Well, I've been doing influencing for 5 years. Me being a social media administrator, that was kind of my segue to get in there and to find out how to monetize it. And that's pretty much it for the influencing. I've had the pleasure of working with big brands, History Channel, Google, and more. So it's been a blessing to be an influencer. And with social media, it's truly my passion. And I think it's a part of my mission to educate business professionals on having a social media page that is, I would say, that's flourishing. Because a lot of business owners, they really don't have the tools or the knowledge for social media. But also, I am the Chief Media Officer at STATT with Tony Hills, the Executive Assistant. So I've been definitely learning more about finances. I've always had, a desire to kind of teach people my ways as far as being an influencer, because I buy a lot of clothes. I have to buy a lot of things, but in going into the financial part, a lot of people, they really don't even have the tools or know about appreciation, depreciation. So I've been really learning how to educate people on the financial part, working with STATT.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, we knew you were going to come decked out today. My wife made me change outfits 3 times before I came on the show with you this week. She's like, first of all, you let Ken Hamlin really show you up. You can't let Eleasha show you up too. I know Alicia's going to come dressed out. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I can't do my typical T-shirt and jeans or T-shirt and shorts this week. She was giving me the business before I left the house tonight. So yeah, you definitely set that standard everywhere you go.
I'm glad. I mean, even with you saying that, as for me, and I feel for others, image is very important, and just for anyone in general. But if you have a business, you always have to market yourself. And I tell people a lot that even if we don't speak, we're walking billboards.
Yeah.
So you're marketing yourself. So your image always have to be on point. So I always say you can have the skills, you can have the knowledge, but everything must match if you want people to come to your business, to work with you. And I said the image is not maybe not your point, your physical image, but it is still a part of you closing any type of deal, whatever that is.
I mean, I know how Tony feels now, because I remember when Tony did the show with us a while back, and you had him out back. You pulled out half his wardrobe, I think, out of the back of the car. You had him in the parking lot changing jackets and shirts, and I was like, man, we're just going to sit down on the podcast, smoke a cigar, and hang out and talk. And you're like, nope, this is not how this is going to go. And I was kind of laughing at the time, but it's definitely someone I think people need to pay attention to. And that's one of the reasons I was really excited to bring you on the show after we got to meet. And I knew what you did and what you're about. And I've got to see you work with Tony and all that you do, especially at a lot of the events. Because even me with the podcast, as this has grown, you think you know about social media, and then you dive off in something like starting your own podcast, or, you start a new business, and you find out real quickly there's a reason people have an entire degree in social media and what that does. And I didn't realize how involved all that was right out the gate. It's something I've had to adapt and learn and bring other people in that are way more knowledgeable than me to help with all of that, because I really had no clue. I thought I kind of understood social media, and it was making some posts, doing this, get my website built and all that, but it's so much more. So as you know, with Common Sense, the podcast, what we like to do is really tell people your story and, where you started out. Is this what you got your degree in college, or did you just find your passion along the way? And what we're going to do over the course of this show is really talk about where you started and especially some of the pitfalls you had, and then the successes as well, because we want them to be able to relate and see these things and see where they can apply a lot of this to their own business venture or personal life. I know there's got to be a lot of people that are really into this and want to see what all an influencer does and what that role and day-to-day looks like, because the women and a lot of other things have been clicking your posts and stuff all week long. So I know they're excited to hear your story. So let's back up to like college. I mean, is this the path you knew you were going to go down, or how did we start down this path? Before Tony.
This is pre-Tony. So this is definitely not the path that I expected. I tell people all the time, I have 4 degrees, and none of them are specifically marketing. I've taken a lot of marketing classes, and that helped. When I started influencing, I was actually working in corporate, and I was doing really well, but I was led to leave, and also before that I was in the military, and so in injuries, and so I would be on Facebook.
What branch?
Army.
All right.
Yes, go Army.
I
Army
need to get
strong.
some of these people fired up in here now.
Just me. Sorry.
Yeah,
Green and gold, baby. Green and gold.
The comments are about to start flowing on that.
I don't know, mine went out. So, okay, here we go.
Go ahead.
I got to stay looking cool.
You're good.
Okay, so I had some injuries, and then I started on Facebook. I would make posts about different products, and it was a family member said, "Hey, Eleasha, you should try vlogging or blogging." And me, I'm a researcher by nature, and I was like, if I'm going to do this, I need to find out how to monetize it. And when I first started influencing, and I got to say, I do influence, it's not a hobby, it's full time. And I didn't have no one to really teach me, so people kind of withheld that knowledge. And I got a mentor, Kate Cole, and she manages some of the Real Housewives of New Jersey, New York, big clients, and she gave me some tips when she did a evaluation on my IG. And from there, I just researching, finding out ways to perfect being an influencer. When I first started, I didn't work with big brands. I didn't get a lot of free products. Starting off, a lot of times as an influencer, they will send you things and say, oh, you're going to pay a percentage. So it wasn't about until I got around 50,000 followers that I started working with the big known brands. And it's been a blessing. I've worked with L'Oreal Paris a few times, Walmart, Neutrogena. So all of it is based too from them looking at my social media presence and also looking at my content. So a lot of brands, if you don't have a strong following, if you don't have great content, they don't want to work with you. And so that's pretty much it, just growing. My last account was hacked. I had almost 100,000 followers on IG. My backup account now, I'm pretty much at almost 57, and that's just with IG alone. I am on all platforms, but influencing is work. It's a lot of work, because when you look at the content, the pictures, the videos, there's almost sometimes 200 shots just to get one great shot. You have to stage certain products and things to look natural, but it's still staged. So there's a lot going into influencing. A lot of money. I've spent a lot of money starting up, of course.
Yeah, editing and all that stuff alone
Yes.
is like absolutely outrageous. I mean, we were just having a talk about that before you got here, because I'm realizing with YouTube and some of those, my podcast isn't exactly YouTube friendly because it's a long format, and a lot of these, everything is hitting into the big subscribers is on short format, and they want the instant reels. They want that 1 minute clip. They want that 2 minute clip and that 5 minute clip. And going back through 2 hours of video from each podcast, holy smokes, that is like a job in and of itself. Like me and Biz were just talking about how to manage that and make that happen. I mean, do you do all of that yourself, or do you have a team now, or
No,
how's that work for you?
I do all the editing, and part of what I do is photography, so I know how to professionally edit videos and content, and that's the good thing. With me, I know how to do all aspects of social media, because of course with social media you have to do hashtag research, and there are some people just get paid alone just to do hashtag research. And typically when brands have found me, a lot of them have found me from my hashtags. So I don't go Google hashtags, I go straight to whatever platform I'm on, and to find out what are the top hashtags that'll bring people to my page, to my post. And that's how a lot of people find me. So definitely hashtags are still crucial, but editing, and because as you know from different platforms, Facebook, they keep changing the time limit with the stories. I don't know, with the Reels, IG, the same thing. Stories, Reels, the time that you have is still cut, and it constantly changes. And so you have to go in and edit certain pieces of a video just to fit on each platform. But I do that myself, and also with the pictures, which is time consuming.
It's very time consuming.
Yes.
At least you're just doing pictures. I got to go back and listen to myself talk for 2 hours and write down timestamps to go in and edit stuff. That is brutal.
So I have a question.
Especially the early videos.
Have you seen now that hashtags? Remember when IG was, everybody's picking on, you had to have 1 million hashtags. I was reading not too long ago. Now they're not looking to have so many hashtags. It's more of recognizable words, SEO type words. So instead of having 24 hashtags, it's better to have 6 recognizable words as a hashtag. But have you noticed that in the algorithms? So like, what's been your journey with trying to maneuver through the way that social media platforms keep switching up the algorithm on you? Like, that's work within itself, figuring out what is recognized and what's not anymore.
I definitely would say hashtags are still relevant, especially on IG. Of course, IG, I recommend to everyone still use 30. LinkedIn is different. You only use a few hashtags, LinkedIn and Twitter. Facebook, I still use 30 on Facebook because that's still how a lot of people find you. If you search, put your name in these certain hashtags, is going to come up. So hashtags is still relevant. It's just using the right hashtag. So some people make up theirs, or just say, I'm the greatest, or whatever their
She's
brand.
talking about me, you guys. Like that I just hashtag common sense and Garrett and the podcast and the guests. She's been clowning on me right now, or educating me, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, so your whatever your brand is, I always do the hashtag the Halt Christian, which is my brand. But the remainder of the hashtags, I use 30, and I have different hashtags for different things. So whatever content I'm dealing with, I have different notes, and I just have hashtags, and I label them so I know, like, okay, if it's dealing with finance, if it's dealing with fashion, if it's dealing with this, then go business, then go to my notes, and then I copy those hashtags. So your hashtags have to be relevant to the content that you're posting.
So how often do you switch up your hashtags? Is this something you keep the same core ones that you're for these categories? How often would you say you're switching or altering those hashtags for those categories? Do they stick around for a couple days, couple weeks, a month? How long do you keep with that before you really start altering them?
It just depends on the post, because to be honest, I use different hashtags every time I post. So it's not like I go to that same group and use that same group of hashtags. Like I said, it depends on what I'm posting, and then I mix it up, and then I'll go back and I'll go back and research and say, okay, what are some new hashtags? Which some new ones came out with digital influencer, digital creator. Those are new ones, but they still have millions of people following that hashtag. Now, when I first started influencing, that was not a hashtag. That was relevant. So now, having the hashtag digital creator, digital influencer, it's a high relevant hashtag.
Okay. I'm going to have to take notes on this episode afterwards. I can already tell.
Do you have anybody that you look to? So who do you, the hot influencers right now that are like killing it? There's somebody that you always check their page out, kind of follow them, see how they're doing things. Like me, I like Gary V. Gary Vaynerchuk always kills it, you know, and he's kind of the pioneer of all of this, you know, to be honest. But is there anybody in particular that you like to kind of follow and check out their style of what they do?
Actually, I don't, because I know as an influencer, I'm different, and I really haven't checked out most of his content, but everyone, your content is going to be different. And I tell people I'm a real influencer. A lot of, just say Beyonce or, you know, any celebrity, people look at them as influencers, but I don't consider them real influencers. Real influencers are someone like me. You set up, you stage, you're putting together everything, the money, the time, and there's a lot of time into it. And one thing I found out, if you go in and you're looking and you're comparing yourself, you're going to try to mold yourself to those people. So my thing is, I'm creatively diverse. So everyone has to find their own creativity, their niche, and when you do that, you really don't have to look at people. So it's not that I do see some people content, and I was just like, hey, that's nice, the image is sharp, but I don't follow anyone. I just you know, focus on
I
me.
literally am listening to an audiobook that Gary Vee just put out, like, as we're speaking. Like, I'm listening to that this week, and he literally said pretty much the same thing she just said, where he feels like it would take away from his creativity and it would hinder him more. Not that he doesn't follow to see what his followers are clicking on and paying attention to and the key words and stuff like that, but he doesn't follow other influencers, or he doesn't do that because he feels like it would stunt his creativity and prevent him from putting something fresh and new out.
Yes, because to me also, it's not that you're trying to compete or trying to model after someone, but when you do that, that's going to make you feel like, okay, I have to be at this person's standard. I have to do, you know, something else to be like this certain influencer or this celebrity. But, and I can say from personal, that's why a lot of brands choose me, because I am different and I stay authentic to who I am. So if I look at someone else, I'm going to be trying to be them or trying to mock what they're doing. But if I stay in my lane, then I just need to perfect what I'm doing, and that will make me prosperous as being an influencer.
I have to say, I totally get that and agree, because as a photographer, when I first started, I was so busy looking at everybody else's stuff and comparing it, and then my lane, my style is what it is. And when people started coming to me because of my look or my style, you do realize and discover that, well, you're here because I'm different, I'm me. And when you stick to it, so I guess, yeah, you are correct. You have to be who you are to be who you are.
Right.
That's what makes you stand out.
Yes.
How much do you bounce between, and how do you decide whether you're going to use video or photo or something else that you just created?
I typically do all the above. It just depends on where I'm at. I know with video content, I really like to use video content because a lot of people, they want to see you. They want to see how you interact. And what I found when you use videos, no matter what you're doing, you get more engagement when you use videos, because people, they want to see you. So looking at a picture, they really can't tell, who you are, what you are. But when you do videos and stories or reels or whatever, they get to see you. And those usually have the highest engagement.
Okay. So what's something you thought was the right way to do it, but you learned very quickly was the wrong way? Or maybe it was not completely wrong, but it was a lesson on how that opened a door to looking at something a different way when it comes to what you do?
I would say look into other people, reaching out to other people. In the beginning, I did, think that, like, okay, I got to have certain things this way on IG. I got to have my highlights. This person has it. And when I totally focused on myself, my brand, what I was creating as an influencer, then I really began to do well. And because to me, whatever you do, you really have to research and know what you're doing. You cannot look to someone to just give you, take their word for value. So I learned to research, not to go to other people. I mean, sometimes I've asked, but I've only had one mentor as far as social media.
Okay. So does that just change from each platform then? Like, you have to do your research just on that platform or for that platform? Or are you Googling, or how are you? I mean, is there a book? Is there something that you felt like really taught you a lot, like other than just trial and error? Or is it just trial and error on each platform, and then, like, I assume it's just seeing what others are doing that are working, but you don't really follow others? So are you just following like the trends pages, or how would someone educate themselves a little more on that? Like, I'm obviously on all the platforms, but I'm different than what you're doing, because I'm doing just a podcast. Mm-hmm. But yet I've got to promote that. But so, we put the guest photos out on Instagram. So I do use photos. Mm-hmm. That goes out on Instagram. We promote the shows same way. Mm-hmm. Facebook's live, YouTube's live. And then after the show's done, the recorded version goes out onto all the other major podcast platforms. So should I be doing research on each one of those platforms, or is there a certain way you would recommend going about that?
Well, I would say for someone who doesn't know to do your research, I know how to cater each piece of content to each platform, because of course it's different. Yeah. And IG is, of course, the number one ranked. Then it's TikTok, YouTube. No, it's TikTok, then Facebook, YouTube, and of course Twitter's last. I'm also on Pinterest. That's one of the last ones. Mm-hmm. But of course, IG is the top one. It's the most prevalent one, and that's too even for brands, big or small. IG is the top platform, so that's where I do most of the research. And to be honest, I've never worried about the algorithm. So I know certain times when you can post content where most people are seeing it. So it's like when people are on their way to work, or when people are getting off work, but still you have people at home. So when you really look at the algorithm, if you focus on the algorithm, to me, I feel like you're going to lose it, because you always have, once again, people out there to look at your content. I've been active, and I've probably lost 300 followers in a week. And so I've learned as my account grew not to focus on the numbers, not to focus on the algorithm. Just post the content, post the relevant hashtags, and that's pretty much it. Just for example, one of my reels was over 15,000 followers. Then I post another reel that I thought was really great. Then I might maybe get 3,000 or 4,000. So it just depends. And two, on my reels, of course, I do use the hashtags that are relevant.
Do you focus all on the catchy title or putting an overlay of a title, subtitle on it at all? Is that like, where does that value in the tiers of, obviously you feel hashtags are number one. Mm-hmm. And then after that, what would you say are the next important things as far as the content and what goes into it?
Definitely, I would say posting videos for people. You have to look at your cover image. A lot of people just post and they don't pay attention to your cover. And I know myself personally, if you just go to someone's page and you just see just a play thing, you don't see a cover that looks engaging, I'm not going to click on it. Because you have to have, even if you do a video, you have to choose a cover that looks engaging, that looks appealing, that will attract people. So a lot of times it's about the clarity, it's about the aesthetics, because the ultimate goal is to basically entice people to click on your page and to look through your content. So it has to be, so number one, clarity, knowing how to set up your videos. And of course, I do use the different overlays. I use a lot of text. I do the most. So, but that is what draws people in. So I just feel you cannot be basic. You really have to be on your content and your theme. IG, definitely on IG. The other platforms, I don't feel that it matters much. But IG, your profile feed, that has to be on point. It has to flow.
What are your feelings about AI now and the use of like Chat GPT, and what's the other one, Biz? What's that one you've been playing around with?
Oh, what I do with my stuff? Mid-Journey, but that's more for photography.
Yeah, I know,
creation.
But like people are using those as covers now. They're using those to create covers and stuff like that. Have you started playing with that, or what do you feel? How do you feel that's going to affect what you're doing at all, or do you not think it's going to have any effect?
No, I don't think it's going to have any effect. I mean, there's one platform that I use that someone recommended, and I mean, it's pretty much, I guess part of it is AI, because it can set it up in a certain way. Whatever text you have, it will caption. Well, it'll capture whatever, just like you and I talking. And we do a small clip, then it would automatically capture it and display it in a professional way. So I've tried maybe that platform a couple times, but the majority of the time is just me going and editing. So I think certain things you still have to have a hands-on approach, and you're still going to end up editing it.
See, that's interesting to me because, my nephews are like little computer gurus and stuff like that. And I mean, the youngest one was like programming his own virtual reality games when he was like 16 years old. And they're all telling me like, hey, we're going to hook you up with this guy overseas. You pay him in Bitcoin. He'll sit here and go through and edit your stuff. You just got to make sure it's what you want. And then he'll put subtitles and all that on it. So I've been looking at that too. But my biggest fear is kind of like what you're saying is it going to lose the touch and feel of what I want it to be, because I'm not the one sitting there chopping it up. But then I'm also going, this is just a hobby that's turning into something. This isn't my full-time job. How do I find time to sit and go through all this and do this? So that's a big debate that we've been having a lot lately.
Yes, I definitely know dealing with content. Like I said, I do take pictures too. I tell people I did go back to school to work on my 5th degree last year for photography because I have a Canon. So I wanted to see how to be proficient using this camera that I paid all this money for, and learning from my professors who work with New York Times, D Magazine, the top people. They shoot very well, but they still send because they're busy, they send their content to a healer or person, some people call them touch up, and to edit their content, because just like I said, whatever content you take, you still have to edit it if you want a great professional look. But even still, to say, even with my professor, the person that she would send all her content to, she knows that person.
Yeah.
And it's not someone that you don't know. And for me, I still like to keep that hands-on approach. And I think it's good to outsource certain things to people, to other countries. But certain things I feel that you have to keep in-house so you can have your touch, your feel, because they don't know you. So if they know, if a person knows you, then they know, like, okay, this is a highlighted point in Garrett's video for me to chop up and put on there. But if they don't know you that well and they're not watching your stuff, they're not going to really know what part is really going to catch the essence of you.
Yeah. Or what your people are actually really tuning in to view and getting those moments, those key segments, I guess you'd say.
Yes.
Is there any tips or certain platforms or certain tools of the trade that you would recommend, especially for somebody starting out, that to play around with or to learn or to spend time to really get to learn?
I would say, of course, the hashtags, and have different groups of hashtags to use that are relevant. And I would definitely recommend for the people to go to each platform to find out which ones. So instead of Googling it, I would say go to IG, put the hashtags in that are relevant to your content, and see how many are following that post, which ones are the top hashtags. Because the same ones, if you Google, they're going to tell you the same ones, but they actually change. And something else that I would say is my thing is, if you don't have the time and you really don't know anything about social media, I recommend people to find someone, because I do a lot of social media consults, and a lot of them is that the content is not quality content. You can take quality content with your cell phone, because I do it all the time, not with the Canon, but you have to be, to me, certain things you have to be coached if you don't know about social media. Or if you're a business, a brand, entrepreneur, you want to get someone that actually knows what they're doing. And me, I don't use any presets for my posts. I can just aesthetically
Thank you.
Yes.
I've been holding that in over
Really?
here.
Yes.
Because everybody thinks you just grab a preset or an overlay and it's magic. I use none. Everything you see me edit, I adjust everything myself. I have a look, but every lighting situation, everything is going to be different.
Right.
But all my photos will have my distinct to it, because a preset does not solve everything.
No.
It doesn't.
And this is no bullshit either. For those of you that don't know and you don't get to see all the background stuff that goes on, she puts a tremendous, not just what we're talking about, but a tremendous amount of work into capturing this stuff. Whether it is her or Tony sitting in the corner capturing stuff for her. She's even got her own photographer here that is taking stuff to capture moments.
Shout out to Otis.
Right now, while y'all are watching this.
Yes.
So, this is a real all-day, everyday thing for her. You can't half-ass what she's doing. So if you guys go check her pages and stuff like that, and you're interested, I highly suggest you hit her up. She's super accessible, super friendly, as you can see, and she's always willing to help people.
So I have a question. Mm-hmm. As a fellow creative, do you ever turn it off? Do you ever, for me, it's hard to not, I try my best to stop, play PlayStation, do something sometimes, and I end up with an idea, and I'll grab an iPad or my notebook and I'll start designing something or looking at something. But do you turn it off? And if you do, what do you do that's not related to what you do? Is it a thing?
I can't wait to hear this.
It is hard for me to turn it off, because I've always been into photography. So everywhere I'm going, I'm just like, that's a good place to shoot.
You see everything visually.
Right.
No matter
I'm
what,
very
it's a composition.
I've watched her do this at some of the STATT events and stuff like that. She'll literally yank Tony or one of the people, and they're like, we got to go over here right now, and this is the spot. This is what has to happen. Like, she has a knack for that, and she's doing that all the time.
But if you have free time, when you have no responsibilities, nothing in your brain, what do you do with it? Look at that. She can't even come up with nothing because she doesn't.
No,
when you're not influencing.
When I'm not influencing, oh, goodness. I don't do it all the time. I mean, I love music. I say my life's a musical. I love listening to music. I love watching live bands when the time permits. But
you're in the right place. We'll talk about that later. You're in the right place.
Really? So when the time permits, if I'm not too tired or, I have the time, I will, go listen to music. But I constantly listen to music. So to me, that's my therapy, my downtime when I'm not really thinking about content or influencing. But like you said, I can be sitting down and I can think about an idea. Otis, any other photographers I collab with, I'll message Otis all the time, and I'm like, I got an idea, and this was on my head. What do you think about this? Because I'm very creative, so I'm constantly thinking about, okay, what's another concept? What can I do that's different than everyone else? So I'm constantly looking at places. I'm like, oh, that's some good colors. That's a place. So yeah, it's very hard to turn it off.
I just want to make sure I didn't have something wrong with me.
Oh, there's a lot wrong with you, Biz, but we don't got enough time left in the show for that.
In that aspect.
So is there anything else you do for fun? Like, I mean,
She just told you. That was it.
No, I'm not buying this.
She comes up with
I'm not
ideas
buying
for
this.
fun.
No, I want to know when she really shuts it off. Like, what is the hobby? Like, what's something you take joy in that nobody else would know that you do? Like something Eleasha that I'm. Tony
over here telling us.
Tony's running around the corner.
Tony's telling us.
Yeah, eating. I am a foodie, so I like to go to nice restaurants. I am a foodie, and I'm a harsh food critic because I know how to cook. So besides that, I don't think I'm a boring person because I'm out and I'm at a lot of events around a lot of people. I like to draw myself in, and typically one of my rituals on Friday or Saturday, I go get me 1 or 2 cupcakes, and then Netflix, Amazon Prime. I burn the candle. I like to withdraw from people and just have that downtime.
All right, what show are you on right now? What are you watching? What are you binge watching right now?
So I like a lot of crime shows. So I just finished FBI's Most Wanted. What's the other one I was watching?
Have you watched Nightline yet on Netflix?
No, I haven't watched it.
That one's pretty good. We just finished that one.
Nightline, like the Nightline that comes on ABC?
I think it's Nightline. It's like Jason Bourne, FBI, Secret Service, and the guy picks up this Nightline. It's like for like a special department. It's like calling the Navy SEAls kind of.
Oh,
like thing.
I thought you meant like the 60 Minutes type.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So it's a movie. Yeah,
that's what I said on Netflix. It's like it might not be Nightline. It's night.
You got 2 cool points back. Because I was about to take all your shit. Like,
I know, because I'm thinking I'm thinking about the show Nightline.
Yeah, like Ted Koppel.
Exactly. That's the first thing I thought about was like Ted.
So it's the actual show. Yeah, I am old, but damn, I don't watch Nightline.
I feel like I'm having a flashback to you and AJ in here telling me all the stuff I needed to go watch.
Yeah,
they've been watching old Cosby stuff and everything else.
Hey, old school, you learn a lot.
Right.
Just saying. Hey, I watched like 4 episodes of Fat Albert today.
Really?
I mean, I learned
on some humbug. Like I was like, I wonder if that got just on YouTube, and it was there. I couldn't stop watching.
Really? I learned where Biggie Smalls came from. I mean, I thought Biggie Smalls was just a rapper.
I don't know if Tony even know about. So there's old school movies that Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier used to do. Uptown Saturday Night, all this stuff, and he didn't realize like half the rappers in the industries got their names from characters from these old movies. Oh, we gave him a cinematic education that episode.
Yeah, I went home for a whole weekend and sat on my patio watching all these old ass movies.
Then he said,
pissed off that they weren't free on Netflix or any of the other 9,000 subscriptions I had, and I'm sitting there buying them. I'm like, all right, I owe y'all one for that one. Y'all owe me my money back on a couple of those y'all had me watching.
They wasn't even funny. They wasn't comedies. It wasn't an Eddie Murphy thing.
Well, that's how y'all sold a couple of those.
Eddie Murphy, when he first did Saturday Night Live with that red leather jacket on.
Man, Eddie Murphy and anything, any of his stand-ups, I don't know how he did them because he had to be 9,000 degrees. Every time he come out like, you have on all leather,
Yep.
and those weren't the LEDs. Those are old-fashioned lights. I'm like, he's gonna blow up at any minute. Just catch on fire on stage.
Yep. Because it wasn't pleather. It was that real leather back then.
But think about it. Could Eddie Murphy Raw or Delirious, could that act, not changing a thing, be done now on stage?
No.
I don't think so.
Not even close.
Nope.
No way.
Dave Chappelle pushes the button as
Cool.
close as he can, but think about that. Richard Pryor, that was classic, like, no
People get
apology.
offended too easily anymore.
Yeah, now you can't get away with none
But
of
I'm
that.
surprised because anything goes, but they're definitely the best comedians. I know probably when I was supposed to watch when I was younger, watching the old Comic View with Bernie Mac. Love Bernie Mac, so, he's out there, Richard Pryor, but to me, he was just an authentic, raw comedian. Bernie Mac, of course, Said the Entertainer, but I'll say Bernie Mac to me is one of the old school ones, is, one of my favorites. When I used to look at him, I don't even know if it was Comic View or whatever, but when he did his stand-up.
Def Comedy Jam.
Def Comedy
Jam. I ain't afraid of you, mother. You know that. But that's
Yes,
what
yes.
But let's relate that to what you do, though. So, how much do you have to, when you look at it? So, I do a lot of content creation for cigar brands, and I know when you're dealing with liquors, cigars, things like that, or just do you have to not censor yourself because you're not doing anything offensive, but for me, I hate reels. I have to do them, but I hate doing them because for me, photos is easy because every photo I light it, I do all this stuff to make it a masterpiece. Then I got to turn around and make it into a reel, and I'm like, nothing's moving. It's just a cigar in an ashtray. How do I make this a reel? I don't have any people. I don't know what to do, and it's like I get that creative stuck. Like, so did you ever run into, it's not writer's block, I call it creative block.
Yes.
How do you get the juices, the mojo going? If you had these two bottles in front of us with these pennies and you're staring at it, how do you create a campaign behind that? I'm not saying to do that, but when you look at it, you approach a project, something you have to influence, what are your steps or processes into creating what we see?
Where are you pulling your inspiration from,
Okay.
I think is the easier way of saying that.
Well, sometimes if you're being original from it, you don't look at another inspiration. How do you spin this web without looking at another web?
It's honestly, it's a blessing. Typically, when I say a brand approached me or someone's talking about social media, my thoughts are automatically, I'm like scanning in my mind, like, okay, how to make this staged, but how to make it look natural. And to me, it goes back to one of the brands I work with, Toast Beverage, which is a non-alcoholic champagne. And immediately when they reached out to me, I'm like, okay, I see a couple making a toast, I see a picnic. And so I told Otis, I said, hey, you want to work with me on this campaign? And I told him, I said, I see a picnic. And so I start with one thing, and from there, it builds.
I mean, look what she's done with Tony. I mean, Tony, the preacher, man. I mean, he'd look like Reggie White, full on preacher outfit if it wasn't for this lady over here.
Well, I got to say, I call him PP Hills. He's
That's so
he's
good.
pastor. He's Pastor Professor Hills. That's Tony's name. PP Hills.
PP.
But she
You messed up.
keeps
You
him
messed
fresh.
up. BBH. Okay. Hold on. Let me change this number in my phone right now. I got to read.
You gonna change the call
I got to
ID?
change the call ID so I know when
To
you.
PP Hills.
Yeah.
So tell us a little more about what you're doing with STATT, because I know you've really been evolving with what you do there and taking on some new stuff and really growing within what you do there.
Definitely. Since I started working with STATT, I've learned a lot about trust and how they're beneficial to not just individuals, but entrepreneurs, businesses. Also, dealing with insurance policies, one thing. And I know for me personally, when someone says something about insurance, I automatically think about death. But working with STATT, knowing that, insurance, putting your money in policies is not more so you're thinking about death is something that will benefit you and also benefit your family. So it's not about just death.
Yeah,
Looking for
that's a hard transition. We've had a couple of different financial people on the show, and I feel like that is one of the things that like is the hardest stigmatism for them to get past, is that I feel like at least the 80s and prior to that, there was so much snake oil salesman pitches on insurance
Right.
that they sold these policies and stuff to these little old women, you know, our grandmothers
Right.
and stuff like that. And they put all this money into it and then they got nothing. And it created this stigmatism to where that's all people can envision. That's all they hear. The minute you say those words, that's straight where they go, tunnel vision. And probably the hardest job you have at that point is getting them past that, flipping that conversation and getting them to realize that that same insurance policy, you really could almost be calling it a 401k, which you can't technically call that as a financial person, but that's essentially, I mean, I can say that, but I mean, it's essentially you're giving them another avenue that they can utilize to, you know, provide money down the road when times they need it, and to be able to pull and have these growing investments. It's not just a stagnant, I bought a policy, when I die, my family gets this to pay for my funeral thing.
Right, and I can honestly say when my mom passed, it wasn't much money. I mean, we had enough to cover it, but it wasn't, her policy wasn't great, but that was just looking at the death part. But one thing at STATT that we educate people on is becoming their own bank. So that's ultimately what you want to do, and usually for, like I said, for business owners and different people, it also reduces your taxes. So there's a lot of beneficial things to a policy, just a lot of people aren't educated on that. And an example, we had a training, and one of the ladies said she started a lady off that really thinks she couldn't pay for much for a policy. She did it for her children, and she took that money that she had in the policy, her kids used it to get a car their senior year, but she had started when they were younger. So we look at it, see how much you can put away each month, and so that's pretty much what it's based upon, your comfort level. But it's very important for everyone to get a policy and then build that interest, build your money within a policy.
How much do you pay attention to demographics and like yours specifically? I know like when I can go in and pull mine now that I'm starting to get enough data to do that, do you try to focus just on what's hitting, and maybe you could speak to what yours are? I mean, what's your audience demographics really look like, and do you try to just continue to focus on that one segment, or do you try to go after or be relevant to more than just what you're really resonating with? And has that changed as you've become further into this?
Yeah, it all depends. The content, when I create it, or for myself or anyone, I don't look at it as catering to women or just catering to men. You want to create content that's going to be related to every race, to every gender. So that's what you want to make it relevant to, not one, not one sex, or not one nationality. You just want to be, being able so people can relate, and even something to not just over their head. So you want to put something in layman's terms so they're able to understand.
Have you found that to be difficult at times, or is that just something you don't even really focus on? Or has there been times that you've focused on that and maybe you've changed your outlook on that? Because I know I see different people posting about it all the time, and they're super concerned with getting this age bracket or this age bracket, and maybe they're hitting on this one, and maybe they're spending too much time focusing on just that versus just, would your advice be more just to put out content that you enjoy and that is relevant to you and it's keeping it as broad as possible? Or would you focus that at all at any point, depending on how established the person or the business was?
Well, I typically don't focus on that. My main objective when I create content is creating something that's quality and something that's engaging, and that's for everyone. So if it's quality and if it's engaging, the people they're going to engage with it. So, once again, I feel that when you get caught up in, all the different categories, then you start losing the your authentic content based upon you. So I don't think about like, okay, would I like this? So if I work with someone, and for me, it's working with brands. Certain things I have to focus on me. Certain things I'm more focusing on the product or whatever I'm doing. Just to say, a camera bag that I might have me in there, but I'm more focusing on the camera bag to get, for people to look at, and then too is doing like I said, the hashtag. I'm gonna constantly preach the hashtags.
Okay. And it's so funny because we've been told, we've had people in here literally said that's not as relevant anymore, and that you need to like not to worry about that, because at first I was putting them in my show notes and everything, and I've slacked from that, but sounds like I need to get that back into every piece of content.
You definitely do, and I remember when TikTok only allows you to put a few hashtags, and now TikTok will actually let you put 30. And case in point, with the importance of using the hashtags on different platforms, when Zales reached out to me, they said, hey, we saw you on TikTok. And it was because of my hashtags. So they're very relevant, and no shot to anyone. If you haven't been doing it, you haven't did your research about social media, you're only going to know certain aspects of it. But all of it is important, because I'm sorry, if you look at Facebook mainly, everyone wants to be a content creator, and I typically I say that's a lie, because unless you're editing, unless you're doing the content, unless you're putting things together, you're not a content creator. You just can't throw pictures up and that makes you a content creator. So when you're doing actual work and you're editing, you're taking a picture, your creativity, when you're putting everything together, real content creators, it's work, and you're not just throwing up and putting content together and just putting it on social media. So
people never talk about the strategy that goes into it.
Right.
That has to be thought about. Everything that you post, everything you do, it has to have an end game.
yes,
And that's the part that I think everybody, like you said, they think posting, ooh, here's some macaroni and cheese I ate today. Kraft, how come you ain't calling me? No, it's not that. You actually have, everything that you put up has to have intent. It has to have reason.
Intention.
Focus, all that. It's a big deal. But you mentioned the big thing, and I think the news just says stuff because they're bored, but the big hoo-ha about TikTok was going to be outlawed or taken away.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's still around or if that's still a thing. And if you post on TikTok, China's going to take all your bank information. I don't know. But I don't know if those are things that you kind of got to keep one ear to the street just to make sure it's not messing with anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've seen some of the videos about people. I saw I don't know if they're real influencers and say, oh, this is how I make my money without, TikTok. So I don't focus on one platform. IG is the main one, but I don't look at like, oh my goodness, like with TikTok. When I saw it, I wasn't anxious, because I'm just like, that's another platform. But it goes back to TikTok is not the number one platform, even though a lot of people look at content there. IG is the number one platform.
When you look on IG, all the videos have TikTok signatures on the bottom.
Yeah.
They're doing on there, but they got to have it on Instagram.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I see, a lot of people put it over. So typically, when I post for myself or someone else, I go to each platform. If I post content on IG or Facebook, I'm taking the original video and I'm putting it on TikTok or LinkedIn. So I don't pretty much carry it over. So it's very few, maybe one or two, that might say TikTok. And it's probably because I couldn't find the original video. But I really believe that you should go into each platform and post. Because usually most of them, they have a time limit anyway, and so you have to shorten the content.
So then you may recreate the same video multiple times for each platform, or do you just chop it down and edit it for each platform?
Yeah, I have to edit it for some content if it's longer, and then I'll edit it to the highlighted points.
Yeah.
And then that's what I'll put on IG, since they went down to a minute and 30 seconds for reels, and it used to be longer. I want to say it was like two minutes plus for the reels, but now it's down to a minute and 30. And so I have to look at that, whether I'm captioning it for myself or someone else, then I know I have to keep it within this time frame, because it's not going to allow it to post. It's going to chop it. So of course, Facebook stories, they're going to automatically give you 30 seconds.
Yeah, we ran into that because I think you're right. That time frame was different because Biz chopped up a bunch, and then I went to try to load them, and then all of a sudden it's like, nope, ain't happening. I was like, really? Like, how do you change this all the time? Like, some of them make it really hard too. Like, YouTube has been super hard to build a following on and just to get your name. So like, until you have 100 subscribers, you don't get your channel name. All these little things. You think they would do a lot of these things to help you, but they don't. So how long into it before you really started seeing the climbs on your different platforms? And were you more limited to just Instagram and Facebook, like when those first came out? And like, when did you see that jump? Like, how long into it was it before you saw those?
I would say year or two, because when I started, I was mostly focusing on IG and then Facebook, because with me working with brands, that's how it was. IG really was the number one. It was rare to post on Facebook for business, even though I have a business account. But also one thing that I always had a LinkedIn account, but I wasn't using it. And until I started partnering with different brands, and then they were like, okay, can you post on LinkedIn? So even a lot of big brands, like LinkedIn really wasn't, the thing. It was when it first came out, it died down. Yeah. And so now with LinkedIn, so I said, okay, I got to get back on LinkedIn. If these brands are focusing on LinkedIn, then I need to focus on LinkedIn. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
So when did you get your first brand? How far into it before you got your first brand? Who was it, if you don't mind saying?
Gosh, and see, my account was hacked, so I'm trying to go. I want to say, I'm trying to think, was it L'Oreal Paris or Fenty Beauty? But to me, the biggest one for me personally that paid the most and was big, that was History Channel, because that blew me away, because I grew up watching History Channel. And then Google, because when I worked with Google, I worked on a long contract with Google. So I worked with Google about 6 months. When Google came out with their Google Web Stories, and still a lot of people don't even know about the Google Web Stories. And they typically show up if you Google. And that was one thing I definitely wanted to coach people on, because when Google came out with the web story, they only chose 50 people across the country. They had 2 people in Texas, and I was one of those persons.
That's awesome. And
so we learned how to do the web stories with Google. We work directly with the Google staff, the techs, and I'm not gonna lie, it was tedious, but we all learned. I learned. So now that's something I think a lot of business, because I say, you know about the Google Web Stories? And most businesses say no. And most people, when they look at the brands like CNN and all those other people, it makes people, I don't know what to say, kind of fearful that they cannot produce content on that level. But everyone should be on these different platforms, because that's one thing too, like I said, looking at other people, looking at big brands or other people, what they're creating, that shouldn't make you timid. Just stay in your lane and create quality content.
Wow. Yeah, I did not know about Google Reels.
The web stories, yep.
That's Google web stories. So you learn something new every single day. Every day. What was the moment like? Because I know I've had a couple of those. I just had one recently. Do you remember when you like first saw those numbers jump though? Like when you first got that big boost? Like I mean, I know you lost the one account, but you know you're chumming along, you know, with like 3,000-4,000 people following you, and then all of a sudden it just starts escalating. I've watched it happen with several of my friends that once it hits a certain point, what was that point for you? And do you remember what that was like and where it jumped for you? Was it a single post or was it a single reel that like all of a sudden you were like, man, lightning struck. I've got it now. Like I think I'm figuring this out.
I truly don't think I ever, or like even still, that I've got a point where I have it figured out, because I'm always looking at ways to perfect what I do. I know for me, it was around 50,000 something followers. If for someone that's pursuing, whether you want to be an influencer or you want to get noticed by brands, some people talk to me and they say, hey, Eleasha, I don't want to be an influencer, but I want to partner with a brand. Honestly, brands, they're going to look at your reach, how many followers. And even once my account was hacked and went down, it didn't matter that I partnered with these brands. They still going to look at the reach. So you have to build up your platform, and that's just on the influencing side. If you're getting paid, that's your way of life. But you definitely, I mean, you can, if you want to get paid, you have to build up your reach, and your content has to be great. And for me, I know it was around 50,000 some followers.
That's just mind blowing. So we got 3,800 video views on one, and I was losing my mind over here. But everybody was speaking in French. It was absolutely insane. Had no idea what they were saying.
The dude you met earlier
did, but yeah.
He has a huge following in France, and everybody from France stayed up to like 3 a.m. to watch him. And it was crazy. It blew up like wow. But I think people in France talk more trash than we do over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they was talking straight trash.
Like, it would be like one guy would post the same thing like 10 times, and then the next guy would, and they were like, you know, you're watching the emojis. That's like the only thing you could understand. I mean, I'm literally grabbing the laptop, showing him. I'm like, do you want to say what's going on here or anything? And he's like, no, these are drunk people at 2, 3 in the morning in France that are talking trash. Mm-hmm. Don't engage in this. And I'm like,
but it was a lot of them.
It's good to know. But
it was a lot of them.
It was a lot of them. I mean, like, it was just, our chat had never been scrolling like that while we're just sitting here.
We signed off. They were still going. I was like, hey, y'all still talking?
It was
like,
insane.
Okay.
The next morning, they were still talking trash. Like, now when I go back and check in on the episode, there's still 10, 20 new comments of Baptiste, blah, 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 in French. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means. And I'm not going to sit here and translate all this.
So is there anybody that you want to work with that you've been eyeballing and hoping that I don't know if you reached out to them or you're hoping you get that inbox from somebody bigger than what, I mean, you've done every name that you've said is not small. So are there some other bars you want to raise, levels you want to reach, boxes you want to check as far as brands that you work with?
Definitely. I mean, I know off my head, Maybelline. I wear a lot of their products, but for me, sometimes I tag some of the brands that I want to work with. There's not a lot off my head. I know Maybelline is one of them. CoverGirl. Those are, and that's in the beauty sector. I know one thing that I really want to get into is airlines and hotels. I partner with Radisson.
She wants to travel. She's working on that travel angle. I know where you're going.
That was my next question, was the traveling part, but you're already covering it right there.
With me traveling, I've had offers to go to different states, New York, and this was recently, and
international. like passport stamping. That's what I mean. You know.
Yeah, I mean, because L'Oreal Paris, they're in Paris.
That's true.
But for me, one thing was important for me, I would say, around COVID, and one thing I started last year, because most of the brands I work with, they're nationally or they're internationally. So it was important for me to work with brands locally. So I strategically said that I wanted to work with brands in Dallas, DFW, Houston, and Austin. And that was one thing I showed Tony. That's the importance of hashtag research. So as soon as I started using the high number of hashtags for Houston, it was less than a week. I had someone reach out to Houston. So for me now too, it's important for me. I mean, because Texas really is the biggest state, it's a self-sustaining state, and it was important for people to know me here in Texas, versus people just knowing me everywhere
Abroad.
else.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so I've been partnering with a lot of businesses. No matter what they do, I've been partnering with different people and all places. So Austin was the last place I went, and I still have people that want to partner in Houston and Austin. So I usually wait until I get a certain number of partnerships instead of, making back and forth trips. And then that's when, I'll go and partner.
Well, the cool thing about Texas too, a lot of major companies are moving their headquarters here anyway. Mm-hmm. So you have a whole plethora of things to choose from because they're all coming here. So it makes sense.
So where are the top 5 places you want to travel?
Well, for me, I do. I would say New York, because New York is a fashion capital. It's a beauty capital. New York, I really haven't thought much about overseas yet. Besides, because I've worked with L'Oreal Paris, and I've also worked with big brands that's in Australia. And I do want to more, I would say New York, California, kind of. But I would say New York would be the number one for me in the States.
So I'm gonna tell on myself here, because my wife's had me watching all these series with her a lot of times. I feel like you're gonna end up pulling an Emily in Paris.
Really? That's my show. I love that. I love Emily in Paris.
I think I've seen that at least twice all the way through. Cause
Right.
She watched that stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that kind of transition for you. You're gonna end up in Paris doing one of these major shows or something. And
I
then,
receive it.
She's like, yeah.
Don't forget us
Sign me
little
up.
people back here.
Yeah.
Once
I'll give y'all a
get
shout
that.
out.
She's like, bye, Tony.
No, I definitely want to get into, traveling, but for me, everything's strategic, everything's intentional, what I do. And even when I think about, like I said, a lot goes back to image and how I partner locally, but with national brands. Décollage, I went in, it was how I carried myself, and then while I was there actually having a service, they said, hey, you're an influencer, would you be an influencer for our brand? And that was me being local. So a lot of it, which I always say to people, your image have to be on point, and you have to carry yourself at a certain level if you want to, I say, work with the big. If you don't want to be mediocre, then, if you want to be mediocre, you can just go about. But when you want to prosper, you want to work with big people, your image has to always be on point.
Now, do you mentor?
Some people, because it's work. That as a creator, it's
Yeah.
work. So a lot of people, when you break it down, what you have to do, being an influencer, dealing with photography, a lot of people that have come to me, they faded off. And so, I think that's one of the big things to me to help people. But a lot of people, they don't want to deal with, with the work that comes behind being a photographer, being an influencer, being a creator. Because if you're truly that and that's what you are, it takes work. It's a lot of work. I've stayed up to 2 o'clock in the morning. So really, it can be a tedious process. Definitely doing photography. Because like Busy said, you're adjusting the hues, you're adjusting the clarity, everything. If you can take a picture, the sky blues, the picture comes out, the sky's white. So there's certain things that you have to do, and it's work.
So
I think COVID killed that for everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you feel like a lot of these people that have done that, like they were just thinking, oh, we're going to get this influencer, teach me these few things, and I'm going to do it. But when they saw how much work really went into, that's where the big fall off is.
And that's where I was going. When everybody quit. Well, they didn't purposely quit their jobs, but because of all of a sudden this big splash of online and influences and things like that. And now we're out of COVID, whatever, but now everybody thinks they can just quit their job and I'm going to create a YouTube channel and I'm good. It's like, even with what we do here, we see that it is just not instantaneous. No. You have to put in the work.
For sure. And I think a lot of people say it too. I've watched a lot of people's and a lot of friends' podcasts and stuff, and they think they can go out and order $1,000 worth of shit off of Amazon, and they start filming a little podcast in their kitchen or their living room or, wherever. And then, you watch it and it's like, here's week 1. They're doing a damn podcast every day. And then next week 2, they're doing 3 days. Then week 3, they're doing 2 days. By the end of the month, they might be doing 1 if they're still even doing it. And then they're like, oh, well, I don't have 1 million followers, so I'm done. Mm-hmm. Or, and I never looked at it like that. I'm glad I went about it the way I did. And, at first it was just something I really enjoyed doing. And then I fell in love with it. So I'm glad I went about it because I don't know how I would have felt if I had gone about it that way. You know what I mean?
Well, you thought of this as an idea, and now you truly treat this as not a job, but this is a passion project that you do the work.
Right, but if I hadn't met you and been a part of the other podcast, I don't know what that trajectory would have been or how I would have felt about it if I was literally trying to figure out and buy all this equipment, do all these things, and have the feel and have what we have already out the gate. Like, I feel like, that put me leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of people, doing it the way I did do it, where I have different learning curves, whereas they had all the learning curves. They thought they were just going to throw some money at it, like she's talking about, hey, mentor me, and like, I can talk to Brandon all day long and, do the podcast with them or get invited onto other little podcasts, but until you just kind of like dive in and really surround yourself with some people that know what they're doing, and then continue to build from there. Like, it's not going to happen overnight, and
But you have to realize too, where you're like, I'm what you just said. All this stuff in here, I bought it during COVID because I thought I was going to start a podcast, but I found out my strength was producing for others. So I take all this stuff and I do everybody else's podcast instead of me being in front of it. My strength is producing for everybody else, and I'm more comfortable being on this side versus that side. So you just kind of figure out where your lane is, and other people never even thought about that. Influencers, you have an influencer, but then you have a team behind you. You have Otis taking photos. You have Tony being Tony, whatever he does.
Mentoring me.
I'm joking. But then, and then I do the creation, also the behind the scenes. So it's like, that's one thing I love about living in Texas. This is one of the places I've never in my life experienced the networking to the extent that it is. Like when I first met Tony, I was taking photos at an event and he was there. And just gone from there to say the amount of people that you knew at first versus what you know now, 3 months can change your whole life in your Rolodex or whatever you want to call it, because this place, people actually do get together to create things and push each other forward. No different than you and I, Garret.
Yeah, no, and I think that's important, and that's what I want everybody to kind of see and get from this if they haven't already. Eleasha's talked about how she had family and friends telling her, hey, you're really good at this, and you should try this, and you should start tweaking this. And she just dove in and started educating herself, getting another degree or 2, I think, and
5,
maybe 3. Well, she probably already had 2 or 3, so dove off into the other ones. But, she dove off and started self-educating, surround herself with the people. And when you're genuine and you put your passion behind it and you start doing that, other people see that. Because like one of the number one questions I get asked all the time, how do you get some of these people on your guests? I mean, I'll use Tony as an example. Like, how do you know Tony? How did you know, Tony's a Super Bowl winning NFL player, blah, 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 has his own financial company. How did you get him to do your podcast? Because at the time, my podcast was 3-4 episodes in? And they're like, why did you do that? I said, well, I personally think he saw what I was doing. We became friends. We started talking. I was supporting his stuff. I go to Tony's events. And there's mutual gain there. Like, I wasn't asking Tony for more than his time, and I was giving him some of my time and networking with him. So people just taking that leap of faith,
that part.
Put a plan together and
part.
Take that leap of faith and then work on the education part, because it's going to come along. You're going to meet people along the way that are going to want to be involved. They're going to want to help you. They're going to want to mentor you in a way of participation. It's not, I think a lot of people get caught up of like, I have to have a mentor to show me and hold my hand. It's not always a mentor that holds your hand and does this. Sometimes it's a mentor of, hey, I'm going to throw you a bone. Like, let's do this. Like, yeah, I'll do the show with you, and let's talk. Let's build this up, and then we can circle back around and help each other grow, because that's going to feed multiple things.
Right.
And being involved like that. So I think a lot of people get caught up of, I have to have a plan. Like, this wasn't what you started out doing. Like, you didn't go to college and have this career path of, I'm going to be an influencer.
No.
I didn't have the career path and, I'm going to be a podcaster. I still have my day job. You have a day job. Like, but you've made this your full-time job, and, you progress through these things. And I think it's very important for people to, especially some of the younger people that watch this, you don't have to have this perfect plan that is all lined out. Like, you don't have to know, I hear people get caught up on these keywords like, what's your purpose? What's your passion? Sometimes they get these things completely confused and mixed up, and they think they're either the same or they don't know what either one of them is. And you're not going to just like wake up one day and go, oh, I found my passion. I know what I'm going to do. Like, I think that happens for very few people. But I think it's more people putting themselves out there, surrounding themselves with different environments, different people, and then stuff's going to start speaking to you. And then you're going to you'll start finding your way. But then at a certain point, you can't wait for a mentor or someone to hold your hand. You kind of got to take a leap of faith. And if that means starting out really small, start out really small. You don't become Warren Buffett overnight, like all of a sudden you're saving $10 a month and you bought the one stock that's going to make you a millionaire. No, you got to eat away at it in little chunks, but it's just doing those little things and starting that process that I think is so important, because as you guys have seen, neither one of us had that right out the gate. No. It's just one of those things that as that started unfolding in your life path, you started pursuing and following it and taking whatever small steps there was to start achieving those things.
But once you found your thing, then you master it.
Yeah,
now you're furthering your education.
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I thought I could take pictures, but when I went and got my degree in photography, I was like,
it's different.
Okay, I didn't know this. I didn't know. And that was even more, lighting was the thing I wanted to learn more than anything. That was the thing. But then when you see the history, the why, the technicality, anything that you do, if it was construction and you learn it, if it's anything, once you find it, then master that skill set and take it further than you even thought about.
And I think Eleasha is a perfect example of that. I mean, she kind of said, I don't follow other influencers, really. No. And, for all the reasons she gave. But she didn't say, I had to have this influencer's backing or I had to follow them. And she didn't, mold herself after, Gary V. I'm just going to use that because that's the easiest thing to mind. Same thing to me. It'd be like me just saying, I'm just going to do what Joe Rogan did. That's impossible. I can't just become Joe Rogan overnight. That would be awesome, but
but Joe Rogan is doing Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan does Joe Rogan.
That's why he's Joe Rogan.
And if you're trying to just complete mimic or copy somebody, there's no authenticity. There's no realness. You got to find your own message and what you're bringing to the table, and that may not happen right away. I mean, I didn't know starting out the gate I'm sure you kind of look at that with each project that comes along or each idea or creative spark you have. That's something new. It's not, you didn't set out today that like, I'm going to have this idea and I'm going to get CoverGirl to follow me, so I'm going to create this post. It's more, I had this, idea of what I want to do, and I'm going to just, do my thing. And if that gets noticed, and maybe I feel that this speaks to certain things, so I'm going to try to bring attention to that. But, you don't just wake up and like all of a sudden like start having these things that just fall into place like that. It's like, you got to be creative and find your own little lane. But sometimes just doing it, like things are going to evolve. First everybody's like, well, what's your show going to be focused on? Well, right now it's people's journeys, and like that's getting tighter and tighter. And I think people can see that, like, we're really trying to educate people and let people understand the journeys and the processes, because these things apply to no matter what you're doing or what it is you find to be your passion or path. You can start doing those things and implementing these little things like that we've been talking about tonight. It hasn't, we don't just talk about bourbon or tequila or cigars. I've had a variety of guests.
We've had everything from professional bar fighters to NFL superstars to influencers to everybody has been on there. Professional bench pressers.
Yeah, I mean, bourbon guys. I mean, you name it. IT guys. I mean, everybody has it. But I think when you start seeing the commonalities between all of these people, the commonality is they started putting themselves out there. They put themselves in different environments, and they started taking small steps to pursue whatever passion or wherever their heart led them in those moments. And they didn't just sit idle. They started taking even baby steps to accomplish those things.
Yes, and I definitely, what you said about the networking, I definitely know that is very important. And one thing we always talk about is connecting with the right people, quality people. And when you connect with quality people, then like you said, with you and Tony, or just say me and Otis, how can we leverage, how can we be beneficial to each other? So when I work with Otis, sometimes we just shoot. I mean, because for me personally, I don't want to lose my passion for just fashion or photography. I don't want to just be brands, because a lot of times with me working with brands, they can be demanding. But one thing too with Otis, I look at how can I help him to give him exposure. So Otis, pretty much every brand partnership that Otis has been on, they've reposted Otis's content and they've tagged him. So it's very beneficial. Even though he does my content, he's still getting exposure from these top brands. So I always look at, for me personally, how can I help someone that's helping me, that supporting me, that sees my vision? I don't believe in making connections. I think they should happen organically, but make sure that they're quality connections. And I definitely know that's very important.
Well, and we've had this conversation a couple times with different people, but you can participate without contributing. So like you and Otis could participate in this, but it doesn't mean you're contributing to each other. You're making an effort to contribute. So I think when you're going for the ask, whatever the ask is, make sure you're giving as well. You're contributing in one way or the other, whether it's your time, your influence, your network, your connections. You have something to offer, but you got to figure out what that is, because people it's not always money. I think a lot of people think you got to have money, or you're only going to get that person if you can pay them. Well, payment can be a lot of different things. Payment can be your time. Payment could be a connection, an introduction, a friendship. It could be, a lot of different things. But I think a lot of people lose sight of not providing any contribution when they're just participating with something.
Right. And I definitely believe whatever you do, if you're intentional, you're professional, you're consistent, like you said, other people will see that. And that was one thing when I want to say before that, like you said, take that leap of faith. You can't be timid. if you want big, you can't be timid. And I actually don't think I was really, I don't know if I was at 50,000, just to say, for Radisson. I never worked with him. So I said, why not? And I said, okay, I'm going to email them, send them my media kit. They emailed me back the next day and said, hey. And so a lot of people, they get timid when they look at certain people they want to work with. When I connected with Tony, I mean, we leveraged each other. And now, I mean, because the connections, I've had different clients for styling, for social media. And that's because I had a quality connection that I could leverage. So a lot of people, you have to look at, who am I connecting with? Are they going to be beneficial, and how can I help them?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it's the time to ask you the big question that we end every show with now. We'll see how prepared you are.
Oh, my goodness.
So this can literally be anything. Every person that's been on this show has said something completely different, but could correlate in some way, shape, or form. It's always been it's one of my favorite parts of the show. So we call this part My 2 Cents. So My 2 cents is literally your 2 cents that you want to share with the audience. It could be something you were inspired by the show, something you've been weighing on you, something you just want to say, something you're passionate about. You know, it could be any of these things that you want to go with, but you get the mic just to you to give us your 2 cents.
Okay. I'm good. So I start?
Yep, it's all you.
Okay.
Mike's yours.
So my 2 cents would be for just anybody in general, not trying to be an influencer. A lot of people see me and they talk about what I'm wearing, different things, but I'm very intentional about my purchases. I research. I'm not a spur of the moment person. And one thing we always talk about is instant gratification. So I definitely believe that people should not, I guess it's easier said than done to look at big brands and to get caught up in what everyone's doing, because you still can look great, you can be awesome, but wait, I've worked in department stores and earlier that those things are going to go down. And for me, one of the things I want to talk about, fashion. You know, cars, what they go to, is it 50% of depreciation? Well, anything you buy that's a purse, a wallet, anything pertaining to fashion, as soon as you buy it, it depreciates at 30%. So my thing is, do your research. Don't just go out and buy clothing or whatever it is, because you can wait. And instead of having that, and one thing I got, and I was telling Tony about, you know, people think about appreciation over depreciation. And one thing you have to look at, even for the financial side, even for the personal, hey, wait. I mean, yes, some people might have millions or whatever to do it, but if you wait and you look at what you're purchasing, you would actually have more wardrobe or whatever it is you're doing. But just look at the depreciation. There's different places I use ThreadUp. I buy wholesale. But everything I do is intentional. I don't just buy things on a spur, on a whim. So I research everything that I purchase and I buy. And so that's my 2 cents. Look at what you're purchasing, and you don't have to spend a lot of money to look great. I always tell people, confidence is the foundation of anything. And to me, I feel like that's what makes me present myself with what I wear, because I'm confident. I don't think about what no one wears. I go with what I feel. I go with the flow, and I don't look at magazines. I never look at magazines. I don't look online. I don't keep up with trends. I keep up with how Eleasha feels.
Well, that's awesome, and it ain't held you back. I mean, you know, you do you, and I mean, it's working for you. So, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so glad you did this. It was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did.
And until next time, we hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we'll see you again next week. Peace, everybody.